The day my husband asked for a divorce. He thought he owned half my restaurant. He had done the math. Joint LLC, equal ownership, 6 years of marriage, a restaurant worth $1.4 million. He figured he was walking away with $700,000 for a place he had never once opened at 5 a.m., never prepped a line, never managed a staff, never stayed until midnight when the dishwasher broke and the health inspector was coming in the morning. He sat down at our kitchen table, calm, confident, like a man who had already decided how this ended. "Rose, I think we both know this isn't working." I looked at him. "Okay," I said. He expected a fight. He expected tears. He didn't get them. Because what Daniel Mercer didn't know, what his attorney didn't know, what nobody knew except me and my grandmother's lawyer, was that 4 months earlier, a Tennessee circuit court had issued a restructuring order. Maplewood Kitchen, sole owner, Rose Navarro, 100%. This is that story. And it starts 18 months before I knew I would need it. My name is Rose Navarro, 38 years old. I own a restaurant called Maplewood Kitchen on Gallatin Avenue in East Nashville, Tennessee. Southern comfort food with a modern edge, biscuits and gravy that would make your grandmother cry from happiness, a weekend brunch that has had a 2-hour wait every Saturday morning for the past 3 years. I drive a 2019 Jeep Cherokee with a parking permit from the Nashville Farmers Market still stuck to the windshield from last October. I have a dog named Biscuit. He has 0 respect for my personal space. I love him completely. I tell you these things because I want you to understand who I was before any of this happened. Not a victim, not a hero. Just a woman who loved her restaurant more than almost anything, and who had learned, slowly, quietly, the hard way, that love alone is never enough to protect something. My grandmother taught me that. Abuela Carmen. She ran a small bakery on Nolensville Pike in South Nashville for 31 years. Every morning at 4 a.m., every single one. 31 years. She used to say, "Rosita, a woman who builds something with her own hands must also protect it with her own mind. Don't wait for someone to take what you have before you decide to protect it." I was 23 when she said that, sitting at her kitchen table, after school, eating her biscuits. I thought I understood. I didn't. Not yet. I grew up in Nashville, East Side. Dad was a contractor. Mom was a kindergarten teacher at Inglewood Elementary for 24 years. They never wasted anything. Refinished their own floors on Saturday mornings. Grew tomatoes in the backyard. Saved every receipt. The kind of people who never told you life was easy. They just showed you it was possible. I graduated from Belmont University with a hospitality degree at 22. Worked in 3 restaurants over 5 years, learning everything I could. How to run a kitchen, how to manage a staff, how to keep the lights on in January when business was slow and the heat bill was high. At 27, I opened Maplewood Kitchen with a $60,000 loan from Abuela Carmen's savings. "This is not a gift," she told me. "This is an investment in you. Don't waste it." I didn't. By year 2, Maplewood Kitchen was turning a profit. By year 3, we were on Nashville Scene's Best New Restaurants list. By year 4, we had a 2-hour wait every Saturday. The Saturday morning rush became something I looked forward to more than almost anything else. 7 a.m., kitchen already running, staff already moving, biscuits already in the oven. The smell of coffee and butter and something warm hitting you the second you walked through the door. I built that. From a $60,000 check and 30 years of watching my grandmother do it first. I met Daniel Mercer at a food industry networking event in the Gulch in the spring of year 3. Tall, dark hair, easy confidence. He worked in commercial real estate, helping restaurants find locations. negotiate leases. He understood the language of what I was building, or so I thought. We dated for 14 months, got married on a Saturday at Cheekwood Estate, 40 guests, outdoor ceremony. Abuela Carmen in the front row in her blue dress, crying before I even made it down the aisle. She pulled me aside before the ceremony, took both my hands, looked at me the way she always did, like she was reading something in my face that I couldn't see myself. "You love him?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Does he love what you've built?" I said, "He loves me." She held my gaze, then she nodded, slowly. Didn't say anything else. I thought that meant she approved. Looking back, I think it meant she was already worried. She was always 3 steps ahead of everyone. I wish I had asked what she meant. That's the thing about wisdom. You only recognize it when you finally catch up to it. Year 1 was good. Daniel was supportive. Came to the restaurant on busy nights, learned the staff names, seemed proud. That felt new. That felt like something I hadn't realized I had been missing. Year 2, he started having opinions. About the menu, about the hours, about the staff. "You work too much," he said. "You need a manager so you can step back. You're running yourself into the ground." I thought it was concern. That was my first mistake. Year 3, he suggested we restructure the business. "You need to protect yourself," he said. "If something happens to you, the restaurant should transfer cleanly. No probate, no legal mess." He had a lawyer friend, Thomas Whitley. Nice office in Brentwood. "Standard practice for married couples in the restaurant business," Thomas said. I signed the paperwork in October, a Wednesday afternoon, after a double shift. I was exhausted. I trusted my husband. I didn't read every page. That was my second mistake. Year 4, small things started. Daniel meeting with Thomas without mentioning it. Phone calls in the backyard. Numbers on spreadsheets that didn't add up. I asked about them. He had explanations. Always smooth, always reasonable. "Just business stuff, babe." I wanted to believe him, so I did. That was my third mistake, and my last one. Because in the fall of year 4, I found out about Melissa. Not dramatically, not a scene. I was at the restaurant, 7 a.m. prep shift, earlier than usual. I looked up from the pass-through window between the kitchen and the dining room and saw Daniel sitting at table 7, with a woman I had never seen. Dark hair, pulled back, laughing at something he said. He was leaning forward, the way he used to lean forward when he talked to me. I stood there for about 30 seconds, watching. Then I went back to my prep work. I didn't go out there. I didn't call anyone. I didn't say a word. I just went back to work. And I heard my grandmother's voice. A woman who builds something with her own hands must also protect it with her own mind. I finally understood what she meant. Finally. 4 years too late. Or maybe exactly on time. I need to stop here. What would you do? You see your husband at your own restaurant with another woman. Confront him right there? Drop a 1. Go quiet and prepare. Drop a 2. Because what I chose changed everything about how this ended. I went home that night, 11:47 p.m. Daniel was asleep. I sat at our kitchen table with a glass of water I didn't drink, and I thought about every document I had ever signed related to Maplewood Kitchen. Every page, every line. I thought about Thomas Whitley's smooth explanations, about the LLC structure, about the joint ownership paperwork I had signed on a Wednesday afternoon without reading it carefully. And I understood, with a clarity that felt like cold water, that I had handed someone a key to something I had spent 6 years building. The next morning, I called Margaret Holloway, a business attorney in downtown Nashville, recommended to me 2 years earlier by a colleague who said simply, "If you ever need her, she's the one." I had filed her number under M, never thinking I'd use it. Margaret picked up on the second ring. I told her everything. She said, "Come in today. Bring every document you have access to. Don't say anything to Daniel. Not yet." Margaret spent 3 hours going through everything. When she was done, she set her glasses down. "Rose, the LLC structure Thomas Whitley set up, it gives Daniel an equal ownership claim to Maplewood Kitchen. If you divorce, he gets 50%, possibly more. I already knew that. What can I do?" She leaned forward. "There is a provision in Tennessee business law. If a business owner can demonstrate that the original LLC was structured to disadvantage the founding member, and the founding member can demonstrate prior ownership through documented investment, a court can restructure the ownership to reflect the original founding intent. How long? 6 months minimum, possibly a year." I sat with that. "Start it," I said. "Now. I need to tell you about Abuela Carmen, because this part of the story is really hers. She died the spring of year 3, the same spring I signed the LLC paperwork. Before she died, she called her own lawyer, Robert Castillo, her attorney for 20 years. She had him draw up a document, a declaration of founding interest, stating clearly and legally that the $60,000 loan she had given me was the founding capital for Maplewood Kitchen, and that her intent was for the restaurant to remain in my name alone, in perpetuity. She had it notarized. She gave a copy to Robert Castillo. She mailed a copy to Margaret Holloway with a note that said, "In case my granddaughter ever needs this." She did all of that without telling me. I found out when Margaret pulled the document from her files, handed it across her desk. "Your grandmother filed this with me 18 months ago," Margaret said quietly. I looked at the document. Abuela Carmen's signature, her notary seal, her handwriting on the attached note, "In case my granddaughter ever needs this." I sat there for a long time, holding that paper, thinking about a woman who made biscuits at 4 a.m. for 31 years, who had somehow, in between all of that, thought 3 steps ahead of everyone, including the man her granddaughter was going to marry. I didn't cry in Margaret's office. I got to my car first. Then I cried for a long time. Not from grief, from gratitude so deep it had nowhere else to go. The restructuring process took 11 months. During those 11 months, Daniel and I were still married, still living together. I went to work every morning. I came home every evening. I made dinner. I asked about his day. I gave him nothing. Not one word about Margaret. Not one word about Robert Castillo. Not one word about Abuela Carmen's document. 11 months. And then one Tuesday morning, he sat down at our kitchen table and said, "Rose, I think we both know this isn't working." I looked at him. "Okay," I said. He was so confused by my calm. He had no idea why I wasn't fighting. He was about to find out. Abuela Carmen filed that document 18 months before I needed it, without telling me. She just prepared. Drop a 1 if you think some people see things the rest of us can't. Drop a 2 if you think she just knew her granddaughter well enough to know what might come. Because I still don't have a clean answer. Mediation. Conference room. Charlotte Avenue, Nashville. Daniel and Thomas Whitley on one side, me and Margaret Holloway on the other. Daniel was relaxed. He had done the math. Joined LLC, equal ownership, $1.4 million restaurant, $700,000. For a place he had never opened at 5 a.m., Thomas opened with a standard proposal, equal split. Margaret let him finish. Then she opened her folder and slid one document across the table. I watched Daniel's face do something I had never seen it do in 6 years. It went completely still. Maplewood Kitchen was founded in 2017 with founding capital of $60,000 provided exclusively by Carmen Navarro,
Rose's grandmother, with a documented declaration of founding interest stating unambiguously that the restaurant was intended to remain in Rose's name alone. Margaret slid the document across the table. Thomas picked it up, read it again. His hand tightened slightly on the paper. Furthermore, Margaret continued, her voice completely level, the LLC restructuring of October 2020, which added Mr. Mercer to the ownership, was executed without full disclosure to the founding member of the legal implications. Tennessee Business Statute 43-24-17 provides for restructuring of LLC ownership when the founding member can demonstrate that the amendment disadvantaged their founding interest without adequate disclosure. She slid a second document. A Tennessee Circuit Court issued a restructuring order 4 months ago. Maplewood Kitchen's ownership has been restored to its original structure. Rose Navarro, sole owner. 100%.
The room was completely quiet. Daniel looked at the documents, then at me, then at Thomas. Thomas was reading something on his phone, checking if what Margaret had cited was real. It was. Daniel's voice came out differently, smaller. When did this happen? The order was issued 4 months ago. He looked at me. You didn't tell me. I met his eyes. You didn't ask. Thomas requested a recess. Margaret and I sat of a small waiting room. Bad coffee neither of us touched. How are you feeling? She asked. I don't know yet, I said. She nodded. She had seen this before. The moment when something you have been building toward finally arrives, and it doesn't feel the way you thought it would. Not triumphant, not relieved, just clear, tired, and clear. The recess lasted 40 minutes. When they came back, Thomas had a different proposal. Daniel would waive his claim to Maplewood Kitchen. In exchange, he would receive a settlement on the other marital assets. The house, the joint savings, the car. I got the restaurant. He got everything else. I signed the agreement at 4:17 p.m. on a Tuesday in March. Same day of the week I had seen him at table 7 with Melissa. I've thought about that. I don't know if it means anything. Maybe the world just works in circles sometimes. I drove back to Maplewood Kitchen. 4:47 p.m. The dinner prep shift was already running. Marcus, my sous chef, looked up from his station. How'd it go, chef? Good, I said. We still have a restaurant? We still have a restaurant. He nodded, went back to work. That was it. No celebration, no announcement, just back to work. Which is exactly how Abuela Carmen would have wanted it. People always ask me, do you regret marrying him? Drop a 1 if you think I should regret it. Drop a 2 if you think every experience, even the painful ones, brings you somewhere you needed to go. My answer might actually surprise you. I don't regret it. I want to be honest about that. Not because it didn't hurt. It did. Not because he didn't do damage. He did. But I've had to sit with something harder. The knowledge that I signed paperwork I didn't read fully, that I trusted when I should have been paying closer attention, that I handed someone a key to something I had built because I wanted to believe the best about him. I'm not angry at myself anymore. Not mostly. But I think it's important to say, because I think a lot of women are told they should have known better and then feel shame about the moments they trusted someone who didn't deserve it. You weren't naive. You were human. That's different. Melissa. I want to say something about her. I found out later they had been seeing each other for about a year before he asked for the divorce. I have no feelings about Melissa. She didn't make Daniel who he was. He was already who he was when he met her. I just hope she pays attention to the spreadsheets. 6 months after the mediation, I hired a new general manager. Patricia Owens, former hotel operations director. 15 years experience. Absolutely terrifying in the best possible way. I spend more time in the kitchen now,
more time cooking, less time worrying about everything else. It took almost losing Maplewood Kitchen to understand that I had been so focused on protecting it that I had forgotten to love it. Saturday morning, 3 months after the mediation. I was in the kitchen. 7:15 a.m., early brunch prep. Biscuits in the oven, butter browning, coffee ready. Same morning I had lived hundreds of times before. Marcus came in from the walk-in. "Full house today, chef." "Already?" Waiting list started at 6:30. I looked out through the pass-through window. Every table full. Couples, families, a group of women celebrating something, laughing loud over mimosas at 8 a.m., which, honestly, I respect. An older man reading a newspaper alone at the corner table. The one with the good light, the one that had been table 7 once upon a time. He was just a man eating biscuits on a Saturday morning, but I stood there for a second and thought about what this room had held, what it had almost lost, what it still was. Then Marcus said, "Biscuits are ready, chef." And I went back to work. Last spring, I was cleaning out the small office at the back of the restaurant, and I found a recipe card. Abuela Carmen's handwriting. Her biscuit recipe. The one she made every morning at 4 a.m., tucked behind an old invoice binder. I have no idea how it got there. I held it for a long time. The paper soft, the handwriting precise. She always wrote like someone who believed that the way you wrote something said something about how seriously you took it. I added her biscuit recipe to our brunch menu that weekend. We sold out by 9:30 a.m. on Saturday. We've sold out every Saturday since. I put a small card on each table that says, "Carmen's Biscuits, a family recipe from the woman who started all of this." She would have been embarrassed and secretly delighted. Here's the truth. I did not outsmart Daniel. I did not plan this perfectly. I was a woman who loved her restaurant, who made a mistake by not reading what she signed, who sat at a kitchen table at midnight and decided, finally, to pay attention. The rest of it, the document that saved everything, that was Abuela Carmen, who built something with her own hands for 31 years, who saved $60,000 and handed it to me with one instruction: don't waste it, who then, without telling me, without asking for anything, without knowing for certain that I would ever need it, filed a document that protected what she had built through me. That's not strategy. That's love. The practical kind. The kind that shows up at 4 a.m. and stays. I want to say something to anyone listening who is in the middle of something right now, who signed something they shouldn't have, who trusted someone who used that trust against them, who is sitting somewhere wondering if what they built is still theirs. It might be. More than you know. Pay attention. Get a Margaret Holloway. Don't wait until the thing you built is halfway out the door. Protect it, not because you expect the worst from people, but because you built it, and it deserves to be protected. And so do you. He walked away thinking he lost a wife. What he actually lost was everything he thought he had won. And I was back in my kitchen by 5 p.m., making biscuits. If this story sat with you today, you already know what to do. Next story. A woman's father stood at the family reunion in front of 40 people and announced he was leaving his entire estate to her brother. He's the only one who ever truly supported this family. He said. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She asked one question. "Dad, what's the name of your largest competitor?" He told her. She smiled, because that company had been hers for 3 years. I'll see you there.